Hi, I'm Skip Nipper. Welcome to my podcast,
where I tell you about not only Nashville's great baseball history and traditions,
shot to right, a one-hop liner,
but certainly about its past. And you will hear a little bit about its present and future, too.
Yes, he can. It makes the waist-high catch.
There are great stories about Tom Wilson Park, Herschel Greer Stadium, Sulphur Dell, and the players, coaches, and fans who love everything about baseball. And every once in a while, you will get to hear from a special guest who will share their fondness and even passion for the great game.
It's a high fly ball down the right field corner, going way back, hits a lead-off home run.
I hope you enjoy part 2 of my conversation with
Mark Aubrey and say, Mark, thank you for doing this.
Well, Skip, thanks for inviting me, even though I think I invited myself on.
Absolutely not.
We talked a little bit about the Knoxville players. Let's talk about Nashville players. We've talked about Turkey Stearns, of course, so we won't visit him again. 2 other players that went on to have a decent Negro League career. John Red Charleston. He was a catcher. He played for Birmingham in 23. He played for Memphis in 24. And then he came back to Nashville for the Elite Giants in 29, 30, and 32.
It's a long time to play.
It is. There was Ewing Russell. I've heard a couple different nicknames for him. I think Columbus and Baby Boy. He was a third baseman for Nashville in 20 and went on to play for the Harrisburg Giants in 24 and 26, the Dayton Marcos in also 1926, and then the Cincinnati Tigers in 36.
Another long career,
yeah. Now, he may have played in those middle years. We just don't know. Right. I got this information from seamheads.com. They've got a wonderful Negro League database.
Terrific.
So if you're not familiar with Seamheads, seamheads.com, go look it up. Yeah. Wonderful guys behind it. Wonderful thing. Oh, while we're talking about wonderful guys in the Negro Southern League, Bill Plott, William J. Plott, wrote a book a couple years back called The Negro Southern League, A Baseball History, 1920 to 1951. Wonderfully researched. I'm not going to be critical. There are things that we've discovered since it was published that aren't included.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think he's going to do an addendum, but that's why we research. That's why we post in various social media outlets. That's why you have a podcast. We're getting the story out there.
Exactly.
It never ends.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the newspapers, I think, they didn't send a reporter out, as we said. But if box scores or accounts of a game were called into the newspaper, then that's where some of the misspellings come, I think. And also, for example, this is not necessarily a player, Roberts or Robertson could be the same person in 2 different accounts of a game. I've seen a couple of them, even in the 40s, where the names are backwards. Cersei here in Nashville, Kelly Cersei is also Cersei Kelly a couple of times, I think. So it depends on how it's called in or how it's reported in. And I'm guessing that the teams themselves, like I said earlier, they had to call in, or if they didn't call in, it wasn't reported.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the information was conveyed. Like I said, a couple of the newspapers did have box scores on a regular basis. But yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
For length or whoever was doing the typesetting, instead of force, it was farce.
Yeah, exactly. And the box scores are less plentiful than the line scores, aren't they?
Yes. Yes. My site, bbsas.net. That's baseball stats and stuff. Baseball stats and stuff.net. BBSAS. Yeah. Mostly it's baseball. It's stuff that Baseball Reference does a wonderful job.
No doubt.
But there's so much baseball information, and their stuff needs to get vetted through their process. Yeah. So I said, well, let me just put up my stuff, my research. Let's share it. I don't hold on to my research. I may hold it for a couple days while I'm figuring out how to present it. But baseball information needs to be shared. That's my philosophy.
Exactly. There's no doubt about that.
And I'm willing to share. And if I put something up on my site, I post on there that I will try to give credit. If you want it taken down, I'll take it down. But this is my research through various baseball guides, through newspapers, however I can find it.
Exactly.
And So in there, I've got for the Knoxville team. So if you go to bbsas.net, click on the wiki, and then there's a whole list of topics or articles. So the 1920 Knoxville Giants, I've got a day-by-day schedule, and in that it includes where did I get it? What's the source? I always try to have two sources if possible.
Same.
Sometimes it's from a Knoxville paper, sometimes it's from an Atlanta paper on the same game.
Right.
They're not going to be wildly different, but it's just another source, a different perspective. And in there, I've included, this is a line score, this is a box score, this is just a score.
Yeah.
Or no score. Is it a doubleheader? Is it a 7-inning game? Was it a forfeit? Some of these stories are interesting. So go look at the newspaper accounts. If you're doing research, mine is not a primer for this or a super stellar example, but click and see what have I clipped from newspapers.com. And I also use genealogybank.com as a newspaper source.
What about your blog post?
Yeah, I've got way too many blogs. Back when I had time, I have a personal blog, what I'm reading, what my family's doing, things like that. I've got one on baseball cards. I've sort of hung that up because although I still enjoy baseball cards, it's not a driving passion anymore.
Yeah, same for me.
After I hit the 1,000 post mark, I thought it's time to just set it aside for a while. I've got Old Knoxville Baseball.blogspot.com. And that's what it is. It's Old Knoxville Baseball. Christopher Ryland has a wonderful blog, Three Hands Dead, about early baseball in Nashville.
Yeah, he's great.
He's given me a lot of good inspiration. Your posts give me good inspiration as well. Matter of fact, you list all the Nashville Vol players. When you did that a couple of years ago, I picked that up and I just ran with it and said, okay, I'm going to do all the Knoxville players. And I've got over 2,000 Knoxville players just listed with links to Baseball Reference, links to the Sporting News Archive, player cards, contract cards. I've just started. There's the William Weiss interview questionnaires from the 60s.
Oh yeah, those
I've started linking those in, but it takes time.
It is very time consuming, and I did that for the Negro Leagues teams too from Nashville. It's very difficult. Once again, that's where you can go in and see that I may have two names that are very similar that may be the same person. Once again, it never ends.
Let's see. Let's talk about Nashville team names.
Good.
In the Negro Leagues. The ones that I found are the White Sox from 1920, the Elite Giants, and then also the Black Vols. Were there other team names for Nashville teams?
The Nashville Cubs was a minor league team. I think maybe Tom Wilson must have had some closeness or love for the Cubs because, in 1931, he signed Satchel Paige, bought him from the Birmingham Black Barons. I think it was 31, and he moved the team to Cleveland for a short while. It was not successful. I think mostly because all the teams in the North, none of them wanted to come to Nashville, probably couldn't get here very quickly. And it didn't go very well. I think when the team came back to Nashville, I think Satchel Paige moved on to Chattanooga or somewhere. So the Nashville Cubs came back as a minor league club for the Baltimore Elite Giants, as best I can tell.
Okay. So
after World War II, yeah.
Yeah, in 1932, the Negro Southern League was a major league team, as deemed by the Major League Baseball now.
Yeah, the Depression hit the Negro National League.
Yeah, and it wiped out a lot of teams. Mm-hmm. The 1932 Negro Southern League was made up of the Atlanta Black Crackers, Coles American Giants, the Indianapolis ABCs, the Louisville Black Caps. They later moved to Columbus in that season. The Memphis Red Sox, the Monroe Monarchs, Montgomery Gray Sox, and of course, the Nashville Elite Giants.
Right.
So how does it feel to have a major league team in your backyard?
Well, Sulphurdale then becomes a major league park, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, now it really is. So according to Major League Baseball recognizing some of those leagues and teams. So which was a wonderful thing, I think. A lot of people didn't like it. I think the MLB acknowledgement of the Negro Leagues was a long time coming, and rightfully so. Ted Williams said that in his induction speech, I think, about recognizing black players for the Hall of Fame. And I think it's a great thing. The stats have been incorporated into major league stats. Well, I've had people say, how can they take the Negro League, National League stats and incorporate them into the National League? That's not what happened. They were just recognized as Major League stats, but rightfully so. I mean, we've got some black players before integration that played hard, and they played to win, and they played to feed their family. And I'm not sure that's any different than a description for a player in what we call organized ball, which sometimes is not organized at all. But
no, I've heard the argument that they should not be included because they weren't playing the caliber of players in the traditional white major leagues, if you will.
Totally disagree.
But they were, I disagree as well. They were playing against their equals.
Exactly.
And if you look at a team, any team, you're going to have an outlier here and there, but it's basically a bell curve. You got journeyman players that need to fill a roster spot.
Right.
The bulk of your players are hitting 260 and they're in the middle. And then the top end, you've got your elite.
Right.
The guys that can smash it out of the park, the guys that are just hot pitchers, the guys that are just fantastic fielders. But basically all teams are the same, except for the Yankees and the Dodgers, who have deep pockets.
Well, a team owner that did not have the financial resources to complete a season, but he had great ball players that maybe moved on, those players' stats are still important. I mean, just equally to the COVID season of Major League Baseball that was cut short, or strike shortened seasons. Those stats are still incorporated into the Major League stats. There's an argument for that. And, you talk to people like Harriet Kimbrough Hamilton, Dr. Hamilton, whose father was Henry Kimbrough, and she puts up a great argument. He's in the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, rightfully so, but he's not in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, which I think there's an argument for that. But there are arguments for others, Josh Donaldson and so many others. That's another great thing about baseball. I don't see anybody arguing about football Hall of Fame or about football players, how good they were back in the old days. I just don't see that. Baseball is a unique sport in that way.
One of the reasons I think that baseball is so endearing to us, one is going out to the park with your family, with your friends, your buddies.
No doubt.
You and I met up a couple years back in Vanderbilt to watch a game.
We did.
Was it Vandy in Michigan?
I think that's right.
Yeah. That was a wonderful time.
Yeah,
the sun was shining. We were enjoying the game.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
The other part, for some of the baseball nerds, we like the stats. We like to be able to quantify something. Now, I'm not really a stat guy. I appreciate them, but I don't crunch the stats. I don't do analytics or statistical analysis. I remember going to Smokies Park here in the Knoxville area. They're getting ready to move into their new park.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it is great. Seeing Nico Horner, seeing Chris Bryant as pure minor leaguers.
Right.
Wilson Contreras, Schwarber. The names go on and on and on. And even if they didn't make the majors and have great careers and multi-million-dollar paychecks, I'm seeing and meeting guys that are playing for the love of the game.
Exactly.
I met a friend of a friend who was the player on a visiting team. He was in his early mid-30s. He didn't have that many years left in organized ball, but he enjoyed it. And it was just so much fun to see him, and his wife and child came down to watch the game, and just to see them interact. And there's a joy to baseball. But anyhow,
I agree with you. When I have people write to me about Sulphurdale and experience that they had at Sulphurdale, I'm going to tell you, 99 and 44 100% of the time, it's about their family. Dad took me, my grandfather, my uncle. We took our kids and had a great time. Family night, ladies' night, you name it. It's about the family. Now, it's a little different today. It's not the family today, but the appeal is not just about the baseball game. My grandfather took me and my cousin and my brother to a game one time at Sulphurdale, and we could smell the popcorn and whatever. We wanted some popcorn, and he said, no, not until the seventh inning stretch. Well, he wasn't being mean to us. He wanted us to learn the game, and I'm sure that's a time where he probably taught us how to keep score. My dad did the same thing too, but it's the family. It's
you must have. I've never learned to keep score. I've read books about how to keep a scorebook. Yeah. I've seen people. But I just. Yeah. Again, it's nice, but that doesn't drive me.
But you used to be able to keep score. They don't even produce a scorebook hardly anymore, or a program anymore. You have to do it online or bring your own scorecard in. But
you had asked, what about Chattanooga, Louisville, and Memphis? Were they part of the NSL? 1920, no. There are sites, Wikipedia, online that have questionable material.
Exactly.
If you will. And in the Negro Southern League entry, I think they list Chattanooga and Memphis as associate teams
Right.
to the 1920. I've never seen any sort of play between league and those other two teams. Knoxville played in Chattanooga, but they did not play against a Chattanooga team.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the associate thing. Now, going to 32, when there was a major league team, Knoxville was listed in the newspapers as an associate team.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I don't know. I've never seen them play. I've only seen, they're an associate team for the last half.
Right.
Who knows?
Who knows? The Eli Giants were a part of the National Negro League in that same affiliation at one point too. I think 1929 or 28. Yeah. When did it end? Didn't it end about 1936? It was over for the Negro Southern League. I know later on it came back after World War II, but not certainly in the same format.
Yes, you're correct. It ended in 51 proper, but it was about 36 to 44. And in 45, the league started back up again.
Yeah.
Nashville claimed a couple of championships, but by that point, integration had happened in 47. Yeah. And I think there are very few games played in 51. There was the Knoxville Packers were the entry, but I've only found one or two games that they played.
Yeah, we have one called the Nashville Stars, but Bill Plott lists in his book that that's a double city. It's the Nashville Louisville Stars, sometimes referred to as the All Stars. And it's a little bit of a conundrum when this initiative to bring Major League Baseball wants to hang the hat on the Nashville Stars. More power to them, but the information is not there. That's one of the things I wish we could find more of a foundation. In fact, that brings up an interesting point. In 1943 or 44, undoubtedly, there was the formation of a Negro Colored League or Negro Major League, maybe, or a Black Major League. And the Nashville Stars are listed there as one of the teams. But it says, and once again, this Wikipedia thing, which I changed at one time with some notes, and it was changed back because there's only one reference, and I like to have two references, as you do.
I know there were a number of smaller leagues that were started. I just found a league in, I believe it was the early 20s in Mississippi. It was a colored league, 6 teams or so. I don't think it went very far.
I don't think this one did. I can't imagine Nashville having a team in the Negro Major League Baseball League during the war. That just doesn't make sense to me. I can see a regional team, a semi-pro team or something, but I don't think so.
Yeah, you mentioned the Depression as being a cause of the failure of some of the leagues, but also the war. There were some Negro League players that served honorably during the war,
right?
Both at home and on foreign lands. So that takes years out of their playing prime.
No doubt.
I thank them for their service. I'm glad they went and served, but it took away time from their playing time. But if the leagues were actually happening, would there have been playing time?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You know, an interesting aside to that, Nashville's Jim Zapp did not start playing baseball. Undoubtedly was a terrific athlete until he went to Hawaii to serve during World War II and played on a black team in the Navy. And there was a white team manager that saw him play and invited him and another player to join their team. And that's where his career took off.
That's good.
It's interesting. I think baseball and the military have a pat on their back from me, and my cap's off otherwise to that. That's a great story as an aside to baseball history.
I've got a good little story. It just came out in the Knoxville News Sentinel that a local brewery, Ebony and Ivory Brewing Company in Knoxville, has teamed up with the Knoxville Smokies for their new park, and they're creating a new lager called Steel Arm Lager, named after Steel Arm Dickey, and they're honoring him through that.
Love that. Steel
Arm Dickey, let me give you a quick story on him. He was a powerful man, buried down in Etowah. He came up playing through various small teams up into Knoxville in 1919. Of course, he was here in 1921, 20 and 21 and into 22. He was offered $5,000 to go to a team on the East Coast. It never happened.
Of course.
But it was reported widely in the papers. In 1923, down near Etowah, he died. It was a very confusing story on how he died. Basically, it was a knife to the throat.
Yikes.
He and some of his buddies were involved in some liquor transactions, and a three white guys didn't like the way the transaction went down. He, of course, was charged, although he died from his wounds. He was charged with inflicting damage. Then later, the three white men were charged, and I think the charges were dropped from them. But a brilliant career, tragically taken. If you go to bbsas.net, I've got a short bio of him. Matter of fact, you helped me edit that a couple years back. If you remember that or not, it's okay if you don't.
I do. Yeah.
We're getting to that age where we don't remember things.
What's your name again?
Yeah, who are you? What am I doing here?
No, I do remember that. I've loved our opportunities to spend time together with researching. I have told my wife through baseball, I have met more friends I call my baseball buddies through the Friends of Rickwood down in Birmingham, through the Southern Association Conference, through you with the East Tennessee chapter of SABR, and you've participated in some of the things here that we have had with the Grantland Rice, Fred Russell SABR chapter, through that East Tennessee History Project that's getting ready to open in Knoxville I think in March. You had more to do with that than I did, but books had something to do with it. Christopher Ryland had something to do with it, and some others that I think is very, very important, once again, to get that message across. And hopefully we can get that advertised a little bit so people that come through Knoxville can see that. And there's a new park there for the Tennessee Smokies. They're going to be the Knoxville Smokies. And I think that's great too.
Yeah, that's coming together real quick. Randy Boyd, the owner of the Smokies, and some other teams in the East Tennessee area in the Appy League, has worked with the city, got some land over off of the old city, not far from the original baseball homes of the Appy League here. It's, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile, if that. So there's some history. What I've seen, the park looks great. It's going to be a multi-use park. Knoxville 1 Soccer will be playing there. They got a retractable pitcher's mound.
Wow. Didn't know that.
It's on hydraulics, and it goes in. That way they don't have to scrape the infield and rebuild it every time they want to do something inside.
Yeah, the conveniences of modern man. It comes into baseball.
Home season opens, I think, in early April.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to getting down to the new park. I know some people are, not enough parking. Well, you'll find a place to park.
I've heard those here in Nashville, and they have a lot of people that go to the ballpark in Nashville. It's just a wonderful experience. Once again, if you got your family in tow, take them with you, because you don't have to pay to park for each kid. You just pay one parking fee for your car. So put as many kids as in the car as you can and go down to the ballpark. Another thing I can't get without mentioning, I don't want to mention it, but I can't leave it, is the University of Tennessee Volunteers National Championship last season. And man, are they off and running. They hit the ball, don't they?
They do. It's not just the Vols. This is a baseball podcast, but the softball team, the Lady Vols softball team.
Right, exactly.
And I'll just mention UT football did well, and the men's and women's basketball are chugging along. But specifically for the baseball, yes, Coach Vitello has done a wonderful job. I think it's getting the right talent, but also having the right attitude in the atmosphere.
And they're rebuilding their ballpark, aren't they? Doing something there they're always
rebuilding something on UT, but yes, I don't know what they're doing specifically, but they're going to be playing in it while construction is going on.
Right.
I think it's expanding out, down the back where there were some picnic tables and seats there. They're building more into a bleacher section, I think. Right. Don't quote me on that. And while we're talking about UT Vols baseball, I've been honored for the last number of years to be a contributing editor to the UT baseball record book. Basically going through, at first I found, this is 5-6 years ago, Kentucky's stats in their record book and UT's stats in their record book for the games played were wildly off, just wildly off. Scores of scores not correct. The scores themselves were correct, but games attributed were not accurate. Did some research and figured out that, we were calling what we now call a UK. There were a couple different colleges and universities in Kentucky, and they were just being confused. So we straightened that out, and then I started finding, the Zanesville team, that was a minor league team, that was an exhibition game. It's not a real collegiate game. It wasn't Zanesville University or whatever it was. And rightfully so, records could not be found. I found the records for 1898, and I found the records for 1897.
That's terrific.
Or 89 and 80, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, and you have to share the truth.
Oh, sure.
Tennessee in one of those seasons went 1-10, and the other season went 0-2. That's going to hurt their overall win-loss, but you have to tell the story.
You have to tell it. Yeah. Somebody asked me one time to write a little bit of, kind of embellish some of the early Negro League baseball things for a publication, and I said, I don't write fiction. Now, I have made some mistakes before, but I want to tell the truth. I think it's important to future generations that they know exactly what happened instead of saying the records are unclear. It doesn't need to be said if they're unclear. They're unclear. You don't report it. So my hat's off to you. I've done the same thing for Vanderbilt. In fact, I think I found an earlier game that's in their media guide as well, but I'm not finished with that yet. So more.
Well, get to it. What are you doing?
Well, now I want to end this with telling me about you and your family, where you were born and where you went to school, and about your children, and of course, Angie, your wife.
So, quick bio here for those editors out there. My name's Mark Aubrey. I was born in Plattsburgh, New York, up near the Canadian border, Lake Champlain area, in the early 60s. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
My family moved to Arizona in the late 70s. I moved to Chicago in the mid 80s and met my wonderful wife, Angie, in 89. We met, started dating in the spring, engaged in August, married by the end of the year. It's been the best 35 years of my life. I often joke and say it's the best 17 years of my life, but that's not true. She is just a wonderful woman, a wonderful helpmate. And she indulges me in my research, whether I'm doing family history or baseball research. I tell her it keeps me off the streets. So there's that. We've got two wonderful children, Edison, who works at the University of Tennessee, and our daughter Caroline, who's doing some intern work at one of the local amusement places here in Sevierville. And then our son got married 5 years ago, I guess, to a wonderful woman, wonderful, godly woman. And they have two children. So we've got two grandkids. And it's just a joy being in this stage of life, being able to snuggle and show the grandkids games and videos and just share them, read to them. It's just a joy. I've been so blessed.
You're a blessed man. I can tell. Amen to all that. Mark Aubrey, thank you for joining me. This has been a pleasure. We haven't talked enough in the past several years because I guess there's a reason, because we wouldn't do anything else. We would never get any work done.
That's true.
We've always enjoyed our time together, and I'm grateful for this time from you. And for those of you who are listening, you've been listening to Mark Aubrey from Seymour, Tennessee, and go to those places that he mentioned. Mention them again.
BBSAS.net, baseball stats and stuff is what it stands for. Go to the wiki page, and then you'll see all the articles that I've written, guides I've transcribed. Just search for Old Knoxville Baseball. It's oldknoxvillebaseball.blogspot.com. There are some links to some other blogs I have there.
Those who are listening want to go to those places and see research. Don't make the time short. Set aside some time, because his research is extensive. I applaud you for that, and I'm grateful for your friendship. And thanks again for doing this.
Maybe we can do this again in another year.
Let's do it again.
Some fresh research.
There you go. We'll do it. Okay. Thank you.